I visited Andalusia in winter. It was better than summer. Here's why. What if the worst time to visit one of Europe's most beautiful regions is actually the time that everyone goes? Most people plan Andalusia for summer, and most people get it wrong. I'm going to show you why January and February might be the smartest months to visit southern Spain, why locals actually enjoy their own cities more when tourists disappear, and why the version of Andalusia that summer travelers pay top dollar to experience is, honestly, the inferior one. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly why the crowds are wrong, what the numbers actually say, and why the question I'm about to plant is going to stay with you until the end. Here's what I want you to think about. Why do people who actually live in Seville, Granada, and Cordoba say they prefer their own cities in winter? The answer is more revealing than you'd expect, and I'll give it to you at the end. The summer problem. Nobody warns you about. Let's start with something that doesn't make it into the travel brochures. Seville is the hottest city in Western Europe. The all-time temperature record stands at 46.6 degrees Celsius. That's nearly 116 degrees Fahrenheit, recorded in 1995. But you don't need record-breaking heat to have a problem. In a normal July or August, Seville regularly sits between 38 and 40 degrees. Spain recorded its hottest August on record in 2024, and the summer of 2024 was confirmed as the warmest on record across Europe. In these conditions, outdoor sightseeing is genuinely limited to the early morning and late evening. The middle of the day, typically your most productive sightseeing window, becomes survival mode. But the heat is only part of the picture. Spring and early autumn are the peak tourist seasons in Andalusia, and summer brings serious overcrowding to every major site. The Alhambra in Granada, which we'll come to in detail, has a timed entry system with up to 8,500 tickets sold daily in high season, and in peak months, those tickets sell out 2 to 3 months in advance. Same-day access is essentially impossible without extraordinary luck. The Alcazar of Seville faces similar pressure. The Barrio de Santa Cruz, the old Jewish quarter that is one of the most atmospheric neighborhoods in Europe, becomes almost impossible to walk through without navigating around tour groups. And then there's the cost. Industry data shows that January averages around $150 per night for accommodation in Andalusia. August averages around $290, almost double. That gap plays out across every category: restaurants, parking, guided tours, transfers. Summer in Andalusia is more expensive, more crowded, more physically uncomfortable, and paradoxically less authentic, because when a place is overrun with tourists, it starts optimizing for tourists rather than for the experience that made it worth visiting in the first place. What winter in Andalusia actually looks like. Here are the verified numbers, because this is where most people's assumptions fall apart. Seville in January averages a daily high of 17 degrees Celsius. In February, it reaches 19 degrees. That is t-shirt weather for most of the day. Cordoba runs similarly. January highs around 16 degrees, comfortable for walking, comfortable for sitting at an outdoor cafe. Granada is cooler, around 12 to 14 degrees in daytime, with cold nights closer to zero, but still perfectly manageable for sightseeing and dramatically more pleasant than the alternative of 40-degree summer heat. The coast is even milder. Malaga and the Costa del Sol average 17 to 18 degrees in January, with 5 to 6 hours of sunshine per day. The Costa del Sol records over 2,900 sunshine hours per year, one of the sunniest coastlines in Europe. And that sunshine doesn't stop in winter. Rainfall does exist. Andalusia gets most of its annual rain between November and February, but it typically comes in short, intense episodes rather than persistent grey days. Seville, for example, averages around 5 rainy days per month in January. Between those episodes, the sky is clear, and the Andalusian light, that warm golden quality that makes the white architecture glow, is actually more beautiful in winter because the sun sits lower in the sky, creating longer shadows and warmer tones on every surface. The practical result is this. In winter, you can walk through Seville all day. You can be outside at noon. You can spend the morning at the cathedral, the afternoon at the Alcazar, and still have energy for the evening. In summer, the same itinerary would require a 3-hour midday retreat indoors just to survive. Seville. The city without the costume. Seville in winter is the version of the city that Sevillanos actually live in, and that distinction matters more than it might seem. The Cathedral of Seville is the largest Gothic cathedral in the world, 23,500 square meters, built on the site of the city's 12th century Almohad Great Mosque after the Christian conquest of 1248. The Giralda Tower, which served as the mosque's minaret, still stands beside it, a physical reminder that this building carries the weight of multiple civilizations. In summer, experiencing the cathedral properly is difficult. Visitor numbers are high, queues form for access, and the scale of the building is harder to absorb when your attention is constantly divided between the architecture and the crowd management. In winter, the nave opens up. You can stand in the central space, look at the largest Gothic altarpiece ever created, and actually let the silence and the scale of the place work on you. The Alcazar of Seville, a UNESCO World Heritage Site and the oldest royal palace still in official use anywhere in Europe, is where Andalusia's cultural complexity becomes most visible. This is a building commissioned by Christian kings, but designed and built by Islamic craftsmen using mudéjar techniques, a style that blends Islamic, Gothic and Renaissance elements into something that belongs entirely to Andalusia. In winter, the experience is confirmed by recent visitor reports as genuinely manageable. Fewer queues, more space in the gardens, better access to the palace's most intimate spaces. You still need to book tickets in advance, but the pressure is a fraction of peak season. The Barrio de Santa Cruz, the old Jewish quarter, is a labyrinth of narrow white alleys, hidden courtyards, iron balconies, and small tiled fountains. In summer, it functions essentially as a pedestrian traffic corridor connecting tourist attractions. In winter, it functions as a neighborhood. People live there. Bars have locals in them. The pace is slow. You can walk through alleys that have remained largely unchanged for centuries and actually hear the city rather than the tour commentary. One important correction on Seville's food culture: unlike some parts of Andalusia, tapas in Seville are ordered and paid for, but they are genuinely inexpensive and very high quality. A few euros per tapa, in bars where the clientele is mostly local, in spaces that are primarily designed for people who live here rather than people passing through. Granada, the Alhambra properly. If Seville is where you feel Andalusia's civilizational depth, Granada is where you confront it directly. The Alhambra gets its name from the Arabic Alhambra, the red, a reference to the reddish color of its walls. It sits on Sabika Hill, above Granada, on the site of fortifications documented from the 9th century. The Nasrid dynasty began the Palatine complex we see today in the 13th century and continued developing it through the 14th. In 1492, the same year Columbus reached the Americas, the Nasrid kingdom fell and the Alhambra was surrendered to the Catholic monarchs. For centuries afterward, the palace fell into neglect, used as housing, damaged by Napoleon's troops, and nearly demolished. What survives today does so partly by luck and partly by the efforts of 19th century scholars and restorers who recognized what was at risk. The Nasrid palaces at the heart of the complex are among the most extraordinarily detailed architectural spaces anywhere in the world. Every surface, walls, ceilings, arches, columns, is covered with carved plasterwork, tile mosaics, and wooden marquetry. Arabic calligraphy runs continuously across the walls. Quranic verses, poetry, philosophical statements. The Court of the Lions, with its central alabaster fountain and 124 marble columns, was built around 1370. It is simultaneously a masterpiece of engineering, a work of art, and a philosophical statement about Islamic concepts of paradise and order. In summer, up to 8,500 tickets are sold daily and still sell out weeks in advance. Moving through the Nasrid palaces in those conditions means being carried along by the crowd's pace. In winter, the daily visitor numbers drop significantly. You can walk slowly, you can stop, you can read the calligraphy on the walls and let the space become what it was designed to be, a place of contemplation. And if there has been recent snowfall in the Sierra Nevada, which is visible directly from the Alhambra, rising behind the palace, you will see one of the most extraordinary architectural views in Europe. The red walls of a 14th century Islamic palace against a backdrop of snow-covered mountains. This is a view that exists only in winter and that no summer visitor has ever seen. The food culture in Granada adds something that visitors don't always expect. In Granada, unlike Seville, the tradition of a free tapa with each drink is still genuinely practiced. Order a beer or a glass of wine in a local bar, and a small dish comes with it. A piece of jamon, some salmorejo, a portion of whatever is being cooked. The tapa changes with each drink you order. You don't choose it, the bar decides. This tradition, which has largely disappeared from other Spanish cities, is still alive in Granada's local bars, and in winter, when tourist numbers are lower, you experience it in its most authentic form. A culture of hospitality that exists because Granadinos have been doing it for generations, not because they're performing it for visitors. The white villages, quieter and more beautiful between Seville and the coast, tucked into the Cadiz and Malaga mountains, is a series of whitewashed hilltop villages known collectively as the Pueblos Blancos, the White Villages. They are among the most visually distinctive landscapes in Spain, and they are genuinely better in winter. Ronda is the most famous. The city sits on either side of a 120-meter gorge called El Tajo, connected by the Puente Nuevo, the new bridge, built between 1759 and 1793 from local limestone. It took 34 years to build and cost the lives of workers in its construction. The old town on one side of the gorge, La Ciudad, preserves some of the oldest architecture in Andalusia, including a Moorish bridge from the 13th century and Arab baths that are among the best preserved in Spain. In summer, Ronda is busy with day trippers from the Costa del Sol. In winter, the gorge fills with morning mist, and the bridge emerges from the cloud in a way that no summer photograph ever captures. Zahara de la Sierra, Setenil de las Bodegas, and Grazalema each offer a version of the same experience. Genuinely old villages, quieter and more locally inhabited in winter, where the whitewashed walls take on warmer tones in the lower winter sun, and the surrounding mountain landscape is green rather than the dry brown of summer. Grazalema, set in a natural bowl in the mountains, sits within the Sierra de Grazalema Natural Park. The winter vegetation here, after the autumn rains, is an intense green that makes the surrounding landscape look almost theatrical. In summer, the same landscape is parched. These villages were built on hilltops, not for the view, but for defense. During centuries of conflict between Christian and Islamic kingdoms, elevated positions were survival. The communities that remained maintained architectural traditions and cultural memories that exist nowhere else in Spain. Walking through them in winter, when they function primarily as places where people actually live, rather than places where tourists pause between photographs, reveals a Spain that is both very old and very much still present. The coast in winter, not what you'd expect. The Costa del Sol's reputation is complicated. In summer, it delivers exactly what the name promises: sun, heat, and crowds. In winter, it becomes something else entirely. Malaga averages 17 to 18 degrees Celsius in January, with around 5 to 6 hours of sunshine per day. The seafront, the Paseo del Parque, and the Muela Uno promenade along the port is genuinely pleasant for walking. The beaches are not crowded. The local chiringuitos, The beachside restaurants that in summer require reservations and charge premium prices are relaxed and accessible in winter, serving grilled fresh fish to whoever turns up. But the more important winter story in Malaga is the city itself. Malaga has one of the most underrated historic centers in Spain, a Roman theatre from the 1st century BC that was only excavated in the 1990s, the Moorish Alcazaba fortress connected by ramparts to the hilltop Gibralfaro Castle, and a cathedral begun in 1528 that was never completed, the unfinished second tower earning it the nickname La Manquita, the one-armed woman. In winter, you can move through these sites without pressure. The Picasso Museum, Picasso was born in Malaga in 1881, sits in a 16th century palace in the historic centre. The collection spans his entire career and includes over 200 works. In winter, it is possible to spend real time with individual pieces rather than being moved through by crowd momentum. Tarifa, at the southernmost tip of continental Europe, is worth the drive west along the coast for one reason that is unique in Europe. On a clear day, you can see Morocco. The African coast sits 14 kilometers away across the Strait of Gibraltar. You are standing at the point where the Atlantic Ocean meets the Mediterranean Sea, where Europe meets Africa, where the deep water channel that separates two continents is visible from a beach that anyone can walk on. That geographic drama exists in any season, but in winter, with the winds that make Tarifa famous for windsurfing, it has a raw, elemental quality that is entirely its own. Food. What winter reveals. Andalusian food is extraordinary in any season, but winter reveals its full depth in a way that summer tourism never does. The reason is simple. In winter, restaurants serve food for people who live here, not for people passing through. The ingredients, the techniques, and the price points are all calibrated for a local rather than a tourist market. The olive harvest is perhaps the most direct seasonal connection. The main harvest across Andalusia runs from October through January. The aceite nuevo, fresh new olive oil, that is pressed during these months has a grassy, peppery intensity that fades as the oil ages. Eating fresh olive oil drizzled over bread, over salmorejo, Andalusia's cold tomato and bread soup, or over anything at all, in a village restaurant in winter, is experiencing an ingredient at its genuine seasonal best. Andalusia produces more olive oil than any other region in the world, but most visitors never experience it at the peak of its quality. Jamón ibérico, the acorn-fed, air-cured ham from free-range black pigs that roam the Dehesa oak forests of western Andalusia, is at its best in winter, when the fat that gives it its flavor is firm and perfectly textured. A slice of genuine jamón ibérico de bellota, eaten in a bar where 3 generations of the same family are having lunch around you, is a food experience that is difficult to replicate in any other context. The winter dishes, cocido, the chickpea stew, rabo de toro, oxtail braised slowly in red wine, berza, the kale and meat stew of Seville, are not tourist dishes. They are what Andalusians eat in the cold months, and they are available in the restaurants that locals actually use, at prices that reflect a local rather than a tourist economy. Why locals prefer their own city in winter? Here is the answer to the question I planted at the beginning. Locals prefer their cities in winter for the same reason that the best version of any place is the version that exists when it is not being performed for an outside audience. In summer, Seville's most famous streets exist primarily as infrastructure for tourists. The restaurants near the cathedral are priced and designed for visitors. The bars in the Barrio de Santa Cruz are full of people who arrived this morning and will leave tomorrow. The city functions as a set rather than a place. In winter, Seville belongs to Sevillanos again. The cathedral is where they go to weddings and funerals and Sunday Mass. The Alcázar is the palace at the edge of their old neighborhood. The tapas bars in the side streets are where they meet after work. When you visit in winter, you are a guest in a functioning city rather than a customer in a tourist experience. That difference is not abstract. You feel it in every interaction. in the pace of every street, in the way the city sounds and moves. That is what winter travel gives you. Not a diminished version of the place, the real one. Andalusia in winter is one of the genuinely counterintuitive travel decisions that rewards you completely. You get comfortable temperatures, reduced crowds, dramatically lower accommodation prices, and access to a version of these cities that the vast majority of their visitors never see. Book Seville for January or February, book Granada for December or January, and check the Sierra Nevada snowfall conditions before you go. Book Ronda on a weekday when the day trippers from the coast are less likely to make the drive. Walk the white villages on a winter morning when the mist is still in the valleys. Eat in restaurants where you are the only non-local. Drink wine from the Jerez region in a bar in Jerez, not in a tourist wine bar in a major city. Which part of the winter picture surprised you most? The temperatures? The Alhambra access? The food season? Let me know in the comments. I read everything and genuinely enjoy helping people plan this kind of trip well. If this video changed how you're thinking about when to go, subscribe and hit the notification bell. The whole premise of this channel is finding the smarter version of the trip that everyone else is doing. There are more of those to come. The real Andalusia is waiting. It just happens to be waiting in winter.